Good space time, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Citizen Web3 podcast, your source for educational insights into the Web3 universe and your connection hub to discovering those that contribute to building the decentralized world. Today, we are joined by FreQniK from Mathnodes. We touch upon transaction anonymity, cyberpunk ventures, privacy tokens, and decentralized VPNs. We talk about art, NFTs, money on royalties, and public infrastructure. Finally, we dive into hosting your own node, homomorphic encryption, redundant architecture, and never trust in anything the government tells you. If you enjoy our podcast, please share this episode on your favorite social platform and help us spread Web3 values into the universe.
Life is a journey, and you take the good with the bad, and you just value everything you can. So smaller validators, they have to show their passion for the network and their understanding for the network. Bigger validators kind of just post stuff on Twitter. Governments want to have a monopoly on privacy. Governments have a history of controlling populations. Life isn't about, making a bunch of money, secure a future where you can spend time enjoying nature, going out and traveling, and building relationships, real life relationships. Never trust anything the government ever tells you, ever.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of Citizen Web3 podcast. And today I got FreQniK with me, the founder of Mathnodes, and I did it correctly on the second time. And he's also a developer involved with Sentinel. And hi, FreQniK. Welcome to the show, man.
Hi. Thank you for having me. I appreciate being here.
Excited, man. Excited to, as always, talk to somebody that is actually building, the not just the ecosystem, but Web3. So, yeah, tell us, maybe, can I ask you to introduce yourself, the traditional thing we do, tell us and me and the listeners everything about you. Want people to know what you do, why Web3, why blockchain? How did your life get to this point?
So it kind of, I guess the Web3 journey started back in graduate school, back in early 2011. I was studying number theory, so elliptic curves, everything that blockchain is based off of. But I was aware of Bitcoin when it came out, but it was just kind of like just a fun thing to know about, but nothing to really get involved in. And in about 2011, my graduate tenure was ending, and I needed some cash. So I asked one of my computer buddies that I'd known for about 15 years or so. I said, is there how can I make cash? He goes, well, you can mine Bitcoin. It's like, well, I don't know, mining Bitcoin. At this point, he was my old hacker buddy. We used to go to 2600 meetings. So we used to, break into computers when we were teenagers. So I was thinking what he meant by mining Bitcoin was something like, kind of hacking Bitcoin or something like that. Because I knew of what Bitcoin was, but I didn't know what mining was or anything. So I looked into it and realized that I needed to use my computers to compute hash power. And at that point, I needed them for graduate school, so I didn't do it. So I finished graduate school, and I did some odd jobs until about 2017. And throughout the time from 2013 to 2017, I was aware of the crypto space. I was checking the prices, and just never really got involved into it until I created my first Bitcoin wallet in 2017 for donations for open source software that I was developing. And I got a couple donations here and there, nothing major, just like, a few hundred sats. But I didn't really get involved into it until 2020 when I discovered actually Monero. I had, read about Bitcoin and its pseudonymous, and not fully anonymized transactions. And when I was researching Monero, I read the white paper and I said, wow, this is like everything I studied in graduate school with elliptic curves over finite fields. And this is really cool. This is what I want to do. So I started developing Monero, scripts and software and website. And I kind of followed the Twitter influencers of Monero. And I really fell in love with the privacy aspect, the privacy coins, because I feel like that is the true cypherpunk venture that a lot of crypto is missing. And most of my investments are in actually privacy coins, even though it's not a strong investment. I think they'll be necessary in the future when people wake up to realize that, everything they're doing is surveilled and there's repercussions for that. So as I was discovering Monero, one of the Monero influencers in 2021, late 2021, posted something about Sentinel. And I had dabbled in the Cosmos ecosystem a little bit with Secret Network. I was part of Secret before they went and joined the Cosmos ecosystem, so I was working on their network. And I found Sentinel, and I said, well, I use a VPN. Why not a decentralized VPN? It makes more sense. You're not trusting any centralized entities with your data, and it's permissionless. Anybody can run a node on the Sentinel network, and so that's when I really started developing software for the Sentinel network. And I was approached by the foundation in January of 2022 to develop applications for Sentinel, and I did, and I haven't looked back. It's been a great journey. I've spread my validators across other networks like Bitsong, which is music, NFTs, and collectibles. And I actually I'm huge in the music industry where I'm located. I've been part of the music scene for a very long time, electronic music, and so we used to go to raves when we were teenagers and all that stuff. And so I want to get a lot. I know a lot of the artists in my local scene, a lot of the local artists and some of the bigger names, and so I want to get them involved in Bitsong because I feel like music NFTs, music has kind of went the way of like throwaway kind of art. People so go on Spotify and they don't look at the album art anymore. Album art is kind of a lost thing, and I feel that collectible music NFTs gives a way to appreciate music once again, and it allows it allows artists to have direct royalties for their artwork, for their music, and some of the reports from the recent launches of the Bitsong NFTs was that the artist said they made more money on royalties in 1 week than they did the entire time they released something on a major label in the traditional music industry. So I really thought Bitsong is very futuristic in the sense that it can revolutionize the way music is treated by collectors and by artists as well. And then also I went to the validators on Decenter Network, which is also part of Cosmos. Decenter is a custom web browser, so it's like Brave, where you can earn crypto coins for surfing the web. But with Decenter, you don't get pop-up advertisements. It computes your unique web surfing experience and rewards you in the Decenter token. So I launched a validator on there early last year, and I've been part of the team as well, working with a bunch of their developers on integrating Sentinel stuff with their products. And then just recently, I launched a validator on Jackal Network because Jackal is pretty cool. It's also in the Cosmos ecosystem, and they are a DPIN, decentralized public infrastructure network that specializes in file storage, so permanent file storage, where anybody can host their own node with whatever free hard drive space they have, and they can earn the Jackal token from it. And so I really am really big in utility crypto as well as privacy coins, because I feel like utility offers an experience for users and for people to make passive income with their laying around hardware, like Akash too. Akash is really great, and I love those DPIN networks, and I feel like that's going to be the major big space along with privacy coins going forward. So that's basically where I'm at now. I also work with other projects, atomic swaps in Monero and Bitcoin and Litecoin. I kind of, crypto is a huge ecosystem, like as a all encompassing viewpoint. There's so many different networks to be part of, and I feel that to understand one network, it's good to understand a lot, because maybe you can take integrations from some networks and put them over into other uh, aspects, and uh, I feel like I like to be well rounded in the whole crypto sphere, because it just has so much to offer, and it gives people a way to earn income that we didn't have before, and hence the peer to peer digital cash aspect as well, for more things like Monero and Pirate Chain and stuff like that as well. So that's basically where I got started and where I am now.
I love the fact that you're able to actually talk in depth about what is the utility of most of the or all of the networks that you mentioned, because a lot of the time I talk to guests, sometimes a lot of validators, especially the bigger guys, you feel like when you're talking to them, and I'm going to be honest right now, I mean, I'm not saying all of them, right? And this is not to generalize, and I'm sorry that it sounds like that. But by no means I mean to offend anyone here, but I have already had guests from the bigger validators. So when you talk to them about utility of the network to validate, they get a little bit lost. And it's great to hear that it's not the case with us, with the average and smaller validators. I'm sorry if I'm putting a stigma here on the size of the math nodes, but it's true. It seems like the smaller and the average validators are a little bit more involved. Is that something you would agree with, or like that statement particularly, that the smaller and average size validators are more involved in the network's life than the bigger ones, or no?
Well, I can't speak for everybody, but on the Sentinel network, a lot of the smaller validators have contributed code base on GitHub. Like there was Alessandro Maggio, who is writing SDK now, and he's in the bottom 50 of validators. Um, and then there's another one, BitVale. Both of these guys are out of Italy, and they just launched a validator, and he helped develop the SDK for 4 Mathnodes. I contracted them for that, and so yeah, I think because it's hard to get delegations nowadays. Like it's unless you're just starting up on a network and you know the team, then you can probably get a larger delegation. But for the smaller validators, they have to show their passion for the network and their understanding for the network in order to get foundational delegations or delegations from the public. And so I think they do. I notice a lot of uh, bigger validators kind of just post stuff on Twitter, um, you know, just kind of market themselves. But like certain ones, like Brandon from WhisperNode, he's on like every Cosmos chain, but he's got quality infrastructure. He does post, and he gets involved. He runs some infrastructure for all the networks and stuff like that as well. I don't know what he does on a developer side, but it seems like smaller validators do put a little bit more effort in, and that's respectful, because they have to get delegation. I mean, there's no point in running a validator if it's not profitable, right? So they're just trying to make themselves seen and heard, so that way they can turn a profit on their uh, infrastructure for the network.
There's so many points you're touching on that I want to like jump on and start talking to, but so I'm gonna try and keep my head loosened because there's so many points we touch on. By the way, quick question before I go into like a more difficult question: do you actually mine Monero right now?
Actually, I switched over to Zephyr because Zephyr is a Monero fork, but they have a algorithmic stablecoin, so it's a private stablecoin. It's called ZSD, Zephyr Stable Dollar. So it's an over collateralized stablecoin that the protocol was developed by IOHK, so Charles Hodgson guy for Cardano. His company developed the protocol for this stablecoin. So actually, it's more profitable to mine Zephyr right now, and I do because it's just launched like 7 months ago, so there's bigger block rewards, and the uh, speculation on Zephyr has gone through the roof, so the coin has risen quite a bit in price impact. So I have mined Monero. I was mining it for about 2 years there, and I also mined Darrow as well, which was a Monero fork. Darrow is pretty cool. It's a homomorphic encryption blockchain. It's the first one, and it's got smart contracts, and it's a really good network. I'm a little weary about some of the people in there, but I think it's got a huge potential to grow. And there's a lot of developers creating some great software. So I mine Darrow mostly on some nodes that I have and stuff like that. So yeah, but privacy coins in general. Yeah.
Well done, man. Well done, man. I've been watching Darrow since I think 2016, I believe. It's a project I've been following for a long time. And Monero is something I remember. Actually, I was involved a few years ago in CCC, Chaos Communication Congress, and I was on Monero Talk. I did an interview there actually during the time, and there was some Cosmos guys, there was some Monero guys. It was cool. It was mostly Monero, but there were. It was like the beginning of Cosmos, so maybe that was the reason, and crypto guys, to be honest, the Chaos Communication guys, they're not big fans of crypto, so like they do let Monero in because Monero has that special, that special feeling for everybody, like the successful privacy case, right? So I totally understand here, but yeah, it's cool, man, because a lot of some validators I have already, and this is actually going to be my question here to you, to stop. I'm going to stop blubbering on about Monero, but shout out to Monero anyways. But I've spoken to several validators, and regardless of the size of the team or the structure of the team, I've met at least, well, let's just say several over the past 4 years or so that are scared of privacy coins, that are, not in terms of like scared, oh my God, I don't want them to exist, but they're scared to be participating in either mining privacy coins or running their validators on specific chains because of, I don't know, whatever it is they're afraid of. Now everybody's afraid of something else. Now you don't seem to have that problem. Now I'm totally with you, but the question, like from kind of like the side, right? um, why don't you care about the same things those other validators care when they say, oh my God, I don't want to be involved in privacy coin mining or validating or whatever?
Well, I see privacy coins as essential going forward in the future. And because there's a little saying that from a Seinfeld episode that says about, and I relate it to government and privacy, is that Seinfeld says, the very fact that you're against us makes me think I'm onto something. So, it's true. The fact that governments want to have a monopoly on privacy. They want privacy for themselves and everybody else to be surveilled because governments have a history of controlling populations. I mean, that's what they do. They're supposed to work for us, but they have other agendas in mind. And in order for us to be liberated to some extent, because as Jean-Jacques Rousseau said, man is born free, but is everywhere in chains. And it's because society imposes limitations on us and government imposes limitations on society. So in order to have a more liberated environment for people to flourish their creative aspects of life, we need privacy because privacy is essential for things that we hold that are valuable. So it's not because I'm doing something wrong. It's because what I know may be valuable and I may not want to share that with everybody until the time is right. And it's about being able to share when you're ready to share with who you want to share with instead of everything being known by a central authority all the time. The watchtower, right? So I'm not afraid because I feel like for us to move forward as a society, we need to envision a world where people are trusted with their knowledge and they do the right thing with their knowledge. Of course, humans have a proclivity to um, take advantage of one another. And so that's, I think, where people are scared of privacy because they think, well, if they know something that I don't, they can use that against me. But I think in order for us to evolve as a society, we have to understand that privacy is important for our self-dignity, for our self-independence, and for our self-respect. And I think more people that realize the impact that privacy can have for the individual, I think society will evolve to a better place than if it was under some kind of uh, watchguard of a central authority, limiting what people can do, say, think, feel. So I think that's why I have a deep passion for privacy and privacy coins as well.
We over the past years we have dedicated many discussions to privacy. Literally, like I don't know, I don't want to say number, but there's been a lot, including having guests from different places, not just one guest. But one of my one of an interesting points mentioned about privacy not that long ago on a podcast was by Chris Goes from Namada is the blockchain, right? So, and it's recently actually been launched. The Shielded Expedition has been launched recently. We were also part of the validator team, Citizen Web3, and he made an interesting point, which I'm a huge privacy advocate. Like I'm a bit obsessive when it comes to certain things, but that's due to experience. But still, he said an interesting point, which made me think a lot. That I think a lot of our society, the reason we are so confused sometimes and scared of privacy is semantics. And a lot of the time, like people put, for example, private data or privacy in your BATEM or sorry, in a different way that he said it sounds better, like private computation privacy. For example, privacy in somebody peeking into your bedroom window. Those are different things, and the semantics for them are pretty much the same. And from here comes a lot of the problems why people sometimes scared of what privacy might bring. And also, I think that another point that this is not on the podcast, but this is something that um, I believe I read or heard somewhere many time ago that there is a very simple solution here. We live in a society where we have private government and public citizens, whether it should be the other way around. It should be, private citizens and public government. And I think also me and Jaya talked about it also from NIM. And yeah, they're also, by the way, a privacy network. I don't know what you think about it. Could that turn the tables around if the government was made to be public and the citizens could be by default private? Would that make a change in our society for a better?
Yeah, so government has a duty because it's supposedly elected by the people for the people. They have a duty to be transparent. Now, there's so much corruption in governments and so much warmongering. I'm from the United States, and I mean, the United States, they just launch wars all the time. That's all they do. When you pay taxes, 80% of that money goes to the military. And what they do with it with their black budgets and their CIA, it just goes beyond comprehension how ruthless governments can be to further their agenda. And the agenda by the United States is, stabilize, control. They want to be a world domination power. They are. They control small states and big states as well. And so when you're paying your taxes in America, all that money is going to the military for advanced weapons research, and it's just absurd. I mean, why can't we move past the idea of, I know there's conflict and people don't get along, but there's a lot better ways than just bombing the hell out of a town, to ins- uh, uh, install a puppet regime that um, coincides with your ideals and ideology. And some people, patriots, I guess you could call them. There was one quote that I heard from NPR, which is a public radio. He was talking about the MK Ultra project back in the 60s and 70s. So that was where a guy named Edward Hunter came back from Korea after the Korean War in the 50s and testified in front of the uh, Senate Committee on Un-American Activities. And he talked about something called See Now, which is Chinese for wash brain. And it was the first recognizable scientific discovery of where American soldiers were being captured and put in POW camps in Korea, and they would come out a month later and show their support for Korean and Chinese communism. And the U.S. military didn't understand why these servicemen could be compassionate about an enemy. So Edward Hunter testified about brainwashing and their idea of indoctrination. And so that would launch the big interest program into MK Ultra. And so you have all these very coercive techniques by governments and stuff like that, and it's just spiraled out of control. And I think that governments have a duty to be transparent to the public, and the public should be able to have privacy to defend itself from tyranny.
Just gonna make one last note on what you were saying there before jumping on a slightly different subject. For anyone interested in MK Ultra, as you know, you can find like references under the episode show notes to whatever me and FreQniK are gonna mention here. But I'm gonna mention this on purpose, so my team puts a note that in the episode notes there is a recent documentary, not documentary, sorry, it's like more of a series, mini series on Netflix that came out. I mean, unfortunately, it's on Netflix, but it is on Netflix, and it's actually pretty cool if you're not familiar with MK Ultra at all. And yeah, have a look. And I think just like the last quote, it was, to find. I don't remember who said it, but it was somebody from. It was a representative of the American government, an ex-representative, who said that whatever you think, whatever bad things you think your government is doing to you, you will never imagine. You will not even come close in imagining how bad the reality is and how terrible the reality is. But yeah, on that note, let's just try to move a little bit, if you don't mind, to a different subject. I want to ask you a little bit more about your validator. And I don't know. I mean, I like the fact that when you described, your validator, it's out there. It's not stuck in one particular ecosystems, and this is a lot what I've been trying to do, and a lot of other guys have been trying to do recently, to spread the wings. So, and not in terms of like we want to have a hand in every pocket, but it's in terms of understanding that the tech is out there. Like you said yourself, the crypto ecosystem is so vast. It's not stuck in one place. It's not stuck in one ecosystem. You can be involved directly, indirectly in either developing a market in many chains, or at least providing infrastructure for those chains, And I'm curious, of course, privacy tokens, you already said. You mentioned Bitsong, and you mentioned Jackal, you mentioned Decenter. So it's kind of like a very wide aspect, and we are very similar here, but I'm curious to your process of chain selection. And I'm not talking only about the things that, of course, your main thing will be values. I'm going to guess here something that relates to you, and correct me if I'm wrong. But what are the other aspects, maybe more technical ones for anybody listening out there, trying to pick up some points on how to select chains in the correct or incorrect way? I don't know what the correct and incorrect way is here. What's yours?
So I think for me specifically, I focus on things that I think will be bleeding edge kind of technology. The switch from centralized VPNs to decentralized VPNs, that's obviously going to make an impact in the future. Permissionless networks specifically are important. So some networks only a select few people can upload smart contracts or something like that. So you have to check to see what the and you have to check to see what the network is doing with their infrastructure, what they plan, and what their goals are. So some of the networks, mostly it was kind of more of a self-satisfying adventure. I just kind of played around with stuff, and the interfaces that I thought were good, that had potential, like in Bitsong, they have really nice user interface designs. Very simple, very elegant, and it was a it was heavily underdeveloped when I first joined, but I saw a lot of potential for it. And I liked the team. I think a lot of the team members are based out of Italy as well, because a lot of the artists come from Italy. And so my mom was Italian, so I was raised as an Italian with Italian aunts and big dinners, and so I have a passion for Italy, of course. But also, I think it's important to understand the team behind the coin. So, how transparent are they? How involved are they? Um, is their communication good? Who are the teams working with them? What's their reputation like? So it definitely have to do your own research, and it's not something that you ape into right away. If you're looking to become a validator, of course, like when I started, I looked for smaller networks because I didn't have much money. So smaller networks where I could potentially bring something to the table for them, and get a head start on getting like $500 in coins and starting a validator. So smaller networks are good to start off on, and then you don't work from top down, you work from bottom up, right? So you start off small and you eventually grow. Um, and so that's also another interesting tidbit about where you should start. But I think you really need to focus on the technology and its potential, and the teams behind it.
You mentioned quite a lot, the transparency, team, decentralization, use case, testing, the fact that it works, and I love it. By the way, ironically, of course, we used to be called Citizen Cosmos, and as you, I don't know, as most of you know probably that listen to the show. And ironically, I totally agree with you, FreQniK, what you're saying here, that you start, bottom, grow big. Ironically, though, the case for our validator was completely different. It was starting with Cosmos and started with a huge delegation of 600,000 Atom, I believe, some years ago. But it's nowhere near at this stage now. Actually, it's much better these days, and we actually been getting back. But this is my next question to you: how do you I mean, you have personally described at the beginning your personal involvement in chains, so it's quite obvious. Where would some of your delegations come in terms of like you building a relationship with the team, the community, you commit, you publicly commit, and here you can attract delegations like that. What are other ways for you to attract delegations apart from, well, I guess it's a strange question. It's a strange question. It's a very paradoxical question. How do you get delegations apart from being involved? So maybe it sounds incorrect. It came out wrong, but what are your sort of go to the blockchain ways and attracting delegations apart from being directly involved and actually committing to the code?
Yeah, so just really getting to know the community, and uh, marketing their products for them on Twitter. I don't know. I don't have Facebook. I do have an Instagram, but I don't think Web3 is that big on those platforms yet. I had a discussion with a guy in Italy about this. He says, well, Facebook, people just kind of look at you weird when you mention like crypto. Um, so Twitter is your go-to. And so you kind of want to focus on, pushing the products. And, the thing about pushing products, like, that a network offers is, for me personally, like, it can be easy, but I have to believe in a product to push it. I would be a terrible car salesman, because, like, I would not be able to sell a car that I didn't think was a good car. So, like, they can sell anything. Car salesmen can sell anything. They can sell you a lemon and tell you it's the best car in the world. and I can't do that. Like it's just not in my nature to push things I don't believe in. So it's more of a just something that I have to have an honest understanding and passion for, and things that I believe is valuable for people to come along and use.
That makes sense. I think it's one of the most points. People find it easier to connect to, right? If it connects to you, then you kind of like, okay, I can do this. If it starts to work, then it starts to bring you something in return. Okay, it gets better. um, what about? I don't know if it's a topic for you, and I don't know. I mean, because you mentioned a lot of privacy things, and you mentioned a lot of proof of work projects as well. Not a lot, but several at least. And what do you do in terms of like the hardware? I want to talk a little bit about cloud versus bare metal, which is a big topic for well, not just lately. It's always been a big topic, but it's been growing, especially after past year. Where we're finally, not in a good way, finally, but finally, Hetzner and some other providers have started to shut down operations for either because they do crypto or because they come from a specific country or da. So the topic grows and grows, and of course, in terms of decentralization, in terms of privacy, in terms of security, I'm curious what types, if it's not a secret, of course, what type of setups do you use? Do you use any bare metal? Are you only in the cloud? Do you have any plans for those kind of things?
So I can't host anything from my house. It would be ideal for validators to do that, because that's the ultimate decentralization, right? But I can't do it because we lose power often in the storms in the winter and in the summer. So I'd have to have a backup generator, and it's just not feasible whatsoever to run it out of my like shed or my house or whatever. So I do run on some network on some providers, dedicated servers. Um, I had one on Hetzner, but because they actually I had an API running on a blockchain with an RPC, and they had um, frozen the server because it also ran queries of checking Sentinel IP addresses of the nodes to make sure they're running, and it would check the uptime of the nodes. And somebody had created a set of nodes on a whole subnet, and so when my queries would do a socket connect to those servers, Hetzner viewed it as like an Nmap scan. So they viewed it as a threat, a network threat, and they froze my server, and so I lost data metrics for like 4 days. I figured out a way around it. They never respond. They would not allow me. I mentioned that I was running API, and they said you cannot do anything with blockchain. You can't run anything with blockchain or crypto. And so I kind of just weaseled my way out of it, and uh, cloned the cloud provider and relaunched it. So, but one provider is a big network, and they're pretty lax on what you can do. And I really like them. Their support is really good. And so I run some TMKMS, which is like protecting your validator key. I run those on the cloud nodes there to protect the validator key of my validators. So it's like a remote storage of the validator key, kind of in a hash form. So it's not directly on the validator server. And I think those are essential, unless you get a YubiKey or something like that, which are like $650, and you send it to the data center. Um, I don't, unless you're a big validator for Atom or something like that, I don't find that necessary, because you're taking a mitigation risk with having a cloud uh, TMKMS server that signs your commits to the validator remotely. So I think it's an extra layer of protection. I think that's good for most validators. But if you're on Atom, where you're securing chains and side chains and stuff like that, it's good to have the extra hardware security involved, and also like the proxy nodes in front and stuff like that as well. I think those are important. Redundant architecture. We do have like I had a dissenter. My dissenter, which is validator is based out of Singapore on Contabo, and they had trouble in their data center, and this was about 6 months ago. And my dissenter network went down, but luckily I have backup servers that I could spin up the dissenter validator on and continue um, committing blocks and signing blocks. The only problem with that is you have to be very careful not to have both running at the same time. Otherwise, you'll double sign and you'll be bricked. So when you do have redundant architecture, you have to take some precautions on when to start and when to stop and stuff like that. So like I said, we can't run anything from our offices or our house or anything like that because it's just all the electrical lines are above ground where we're at, and so there's a lot of trees in the neighborhood too, and it's a mess during the summer when we get storms and stuff like that. So I just don't have the uh, setup for anything like that, and I don't think it's possible for the area I'm in. But it's ideal if you can. Like I know one validator, Badger Byte for Sentinel, he runs it out of his office, and it's ideal because you get a ISP line. There's no restrictions on what you can run. If the company decides that they don't want you running crypto projects, well, then you're shit out of luck. So, but if you run it from your office or your house, then there's no restrictions on the kind of infrastructure that you can have.
We're now testing the local setups that we're doing, and one part of the testing is I'm trying to connect the Starlink directly to a set of solar panels to see whether or not during a storm, because we also get storms where I live every now and again, not as often as you described, but could be once per year, like something serious, for a day or so. Sometimes a bit more often, and sometimes you have internet outages. So I'm trying to see if I can connect the Starlink directly to some solar panels and to a battery UPS to see how long it will last. But so far the tests have been okay, actually. So let's see. But of course, this is in an area where storms are not an issue for more than a day per year or something like that. So I'm lucky in that sense. And by the way, for anybody, again, you mentioned the TKMS. I also want to mention for anybody listening to this and curious about it, the Horcrux. Check out both tools. They're both good tools for providing more security to your delegators and to your validator. So it's a good thing for avoiding having to store the validator key directly on the validator. In both cases, they work in slightly different way, but it's the same set of tools. What about, what do you personally, I mean, you mentioned so many interests, whether it's electronic music, privacy, chains, privacy tokens, and maths, and a couple of other things. Which is a lot to connect with the community and build a community around. But I guess that, from my conversations again with other validators specifically, unfortunately, it's not as easy to build a community around interests as one would have imagined. At least in my case, definitely didn't work like that. And a lot of the guests that come on the show say that it's unfortunate it doesn't work like that. What's your case? Have you, the community around the validator, around Mathnodes, how are you building it? Does it exist today? If it exists, how are you approaching to communicate with it? What do you do? Anything specific? I don't know, anything you want to mention in that direction?
So we have our website, and I think the major outlet for our validator is through our Telegram channel. We have a pretty strong following there. We get I think assistance for our application is the main topic there. So people come in and say they have a problem, and I a system or a community member a system right away. And so I think the open-end channels of communication directly with end users is essential for them to gain an understanding of what you're about and what you want to bring to the table. Um, of course, my first passion since I was 3 years old was always mathematics. And, I went to undergrad and started doing computer science, and I got to calculus 2, and I said, no, math is my first passion, and that's when I switched to mathematics. Unfortunately, I don't do much of that anymore. I do have a analytics dashboard where I, do some basic algebra, but nothing like the advanced number theory I was doing or anything like that. So unfortunately, I don't get to express my passion for mathematics like I used to be able to when I was in graduate school. I got to travel around the country, give talks, and I was 100% immersed in the thing I love most. And that is, there's no better experience than to be completely immersed in the thing that you're the most passionate about, because nothing else matters. Like, I mean, you don't care about any of the politics of the world. You don't care about anything because you're so immersed in a certain idea that you have so much passion for that's the only driving force to keep you going every day. And it is a very strong force. So unfortunately, can't express my passion for mathematics as much anymore because I'm just not directly involved in it like I used to be. But so, my programming background is strong. So, and, I like to work with the community, and things on privacy are essential for me to communicate with people about. And so that's kind of where I found an outlet in my voice. And that's kind of how I'm going to further address the public.
What would make you close down the validator?
Like the Mathnodes validators?
Yeah, like shut down tomorrow, like you shut it down. Something happened. What is that case, if there's such a case that would make you tomorrow shut it down?
Just frustration with, it would have to be a lot because I get frustrated every day with regulatory oversight. Just you got to take a break from Twitter because you will go nuts if you read that thing every day, man. Because there's just so much negative. There's a few positive posts on there, but most of the stuff is like negative towards the community, negative towards the ecosystem, negative towards the world, and it's too much negative energy, and that can really lead you to be frustrated and just want to throw in the towel and say, there's no hope. As much as impact as I could make, we need an army, and I don't know if that army is going to exist in the future. And it's true because the way the world is heading, in my opinion, we need a lot of people to stand up and not what's the word I'm looking for?
Grow balls.
Yeah,
For
grow
people
balls,
to grow
yeah.
balls, man.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, come on, it's just kind of like saying it directly as it is. But I absolutely agree, man. That's why I'm sorry if that was. Of course, you were looking probably for something more mellow there, but
yeah, I was gonna say don't consent. Just go against the grain because that's how development is formed, is by going against the grain. So, but yeah, grow balls definitely. People they definitely need to grow. There's like George. I watched a George Carlin thing a couple weeks ago. He goes, the one thing I learned growing up is never trust anything the government ever tells you ever. And it's true because you know what? They're lying through their teeth, and they're not looking out for you, man. So you got to grow some balls and do your own thing, and just push against the entity that is.
Absolutely. 150 million% to it. And again, I'm gonna do a small second of self promotion here to our episodes. If you're listening to this and you're interested, you're thinking or you're curious in learning about the evils of statism and what is statism, and about how governments work. I advise highly to listen to an episode we had recently with Derek Wills, author of The Liberty Solution, and it's not crypto related as such. It's more about actually governments and privacy, and I really highly suggest for any listeners interested in that to check it out. FreQniK, what about another thing? You mentioned community frustration, and I totally understand what you're talking about. There are points and cases where some people become very negative, and a lot of it, in at least so it feels to me, doesn't come from bad intentions of somebody, but from lacking knowledge usually of something, how something works, or how something, whether it's as complex as, I don't know, ecliptic curves, or as simple as, I don't know, pressing a button somewhere. So the question is like this: if there was one thing you could pick to educate proof of stake users or delegators on, and I know it sounds kind of harsh the way I put it, but it's not in a bad way. It's something that you could share with them. What would it be? Like something that you think is missing today on the market to improve public education level about proof of stake, about how validation works, about how they monetize, about how they build, how the networks work, and so on and so forth. If there was something that you think could improve that knowledge and improve and lower the toxicity maybe as a result of that. Is there something like that you can think of?
That's kind of a little tricky question because kind of have to like see what's already available to people. Proof of stake is interesting. I'm a big proof of work guy as well, but proof of stake offers a lot of benefits, and there's the world definitely exists for both. I'm not one side or the other.
Expand the question. Let's expand the question for proof of stake and proof of work. What would you do in order to have more people receive better education about both? Sorry.
Yeah, so I think really the best education for anybody is to get involved in it, and just you have to experience it to understand it. And so if you're just looking for a quick way to make money, whether it be mining proof of work or staking on proof of stake, um, you're really not getting the understanding of what the technology offers. You really need to understand the in-depth consensus algorithms in proof of work versus proof of stake, how validators reach a consensus among the 80, 100, 150 people, validators securing the network, whereas proof of work is much more distributed. It's a lot of proof of work focuses on high hash power and some focus on ASIC resistance. So what's ASIC resistance? Well, that's not allowing specialized computers to mine like on Bitcoin. So this allows people to mine with their home computers, which people do for Monero, and this allows a much larger decentralized network. It allows for more unstoppability because anybody doesn't need hundreds of thousands of dollars in a warehouse to start up a mining network. They can contribute to the network just with their available hardware that they have at home. And so I think, and then proof of stake is really good because it allows people with not much income to delegate their coins to a validator. And I think validator selection is very important. Most people just pick, like in Cosmos Station, it automatically selects Cosmos Station as your validator. So I think that's why they have so many delegations. And I think, I think before you get involved in anything technological, you need to understand how, not fully in depth how it works, because that can be a lot of very time consuming to understand the nitty gritty of a lot of the stuff that people take for granted every day. Me personally, I always want to know how stuff works. Like, I may, like when I was working with dexes and like, using them, I was like, how the fuck do these things work? Like, how do they balance their coins and all that? And And like most people don't ask that question, and you really don't need to. But at the same time, I have an inquisitive nature, and so I want to know like how something works before I really get involved with it, because I want to understand what could go wrong as well as what goes right. And so I think, looking at the pros and cons of proof of work and proof of stake, I think are essential for people to get an understanding of the technology. And just always, 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 always try to understand to the best of your knowledge and take time. Everything, people are in such a rush these days. Everybody wants to have everything done for them right on the spot. And I think me personally, I try to I always used to say slow and methodical wins the race, right? So take your time, understand what you're doing, and understand what it can achieve for you. And I think that's the best uh, talking point on something like that is.
I love that. I love about the taking time, and especially in crypto, with an industry which runs 24 fucking 7. I think that's a very very good piece of advice, and I think it's a good place to kind of come to a blitz. I'm gonna do a quick blitz with 3 questions, since we mentioned a lot of projects already. And that was the other question that I'm going to skip out of there. But again, all the projects that FreQniK and myself mentioned are referenced in the show notes. So if you're interested in checking any of them, do. Or even better, do your own research, Dio, right? Like we say in crypto. So 3 questions. Give me one movie or book or song that carries an influence on you in life, throughout life.
I'll give you one of each. So a film, Persona by Ingmar Bergman. It is mind blowing. It's a foreign film if you're a U.S. citizen, but it is just oh god, it's just so mind blowing. But and then for American films, I'd say Lawrence of Arabia, the life of Lawrence in Arabia in the World War I was so fascinating, and it's such a beautiful film. And then that book, Seven Pillars of Wisdom by him, was one of the best books I ever read. But the best book I ever read was Don Quixote. It's a book that changed I've read a lot of Russian literature, and I love Russian literature, 19th century Russian literature. I think it is the best literature that I've ever read, and I've read French literature, Emile Zola, very good author. But Don Quixote, just that book written in 1605, and then the second volume was written in 1615. Contemporary of Shakespeare and Newton and all that stuff. It's so everything is in that book. You have poetry, you have romance, you have comedy, you have action, you have adventure, everything in it. And then the second volume of that book is so meta. He's talking about a book that was written about him in the second. It's just the book is really fascinating. And I remember writing down quotes in my little notebook of stuff that Don Quixote would say. He lost his mind, but he was just trying to help everybody, and it's just really fascinating. What was the book, film, and what was the other? Music?
Song.
Yeah, song. Yeah, so I think um, song that's tough, but there's like I said, I grew up in electronic music, so a lot of the stuff would be like Jaguar by Rolando, or Good Life by Kevin Saunderson, or if you want to go more into 60s, 70s, Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd. Fucking phenomenal song. Pink Floyd has that is my favorite like rock band of all time. They were so cutting edge, and I mean, I just remember having times where I listened to an album from front to cover and was just blown away. It tells a whole story, and so those definitely have a spot in my heart.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely agree to that as well. And I think some of the best albums, when you listen to them all together, like Pink Floyd, the way they combine, the way they fucking take your mind to places is very crazy. What about the second one? What about a person? Give me one person again, not a guru, not not somebody that I don't know, not somebody that you follow, because it's not about following somebody, right? It's somebody that, and it doesn't have to be a realistic, could be a made up person like Don Quixote. Somebody that you at least sometimes look up to, or think that what they did was a good example of doing things. And it doesn't have to be a real person, could be made up, could be real.
Yeah. So when you first asked the question, I was thinking of my favorite philosopher, Bertrand Russell, but I've prescribed to a lot of his ideologies, except for his ideology of a one world government, which at first in my 20s I thought was a good idea, but now I think it's not a good idea because it doesn't allow for individuality in the different cultures. But really, then when you started saying fictional characters, I think the ideal person to look up to is Alosha Kamazarov from the Russian book Brothers Karamazov. He is the absolute magnanimous individual, always trying to do the right thing, never quite succeeding in doing the ideal thing at the right time, but always trying to get to that point of being somebody who brushes off um, sinister ways and looks out for the common individual. And I think that was a really good book, amazing book by Dostoevsky. And I think as if we could strive to be like Alosha, the world would be a better place. But I don't know if most people can reach to that level. So
He's a difficult writer. He's a very difficult writer. Okay, last question. One motivational thing that you would like to share with other people that you think, not that you think, that you know because it's for you, right? Well, helps FreQniK to, remain curious, read book, get out of bed, validate networks, and do everything else you do in your life. What is that one motivational thing you could share with other people that helps you at least to do all those things?
So, kind of been struggling with this question for the last couple of years because I went through a really hard time for a lot of years, and I still go through hard times every day. We don't need to get into any of that, but what keeps me going is really it's friends and relationships, and having altruistic uh, values with the people I love. I think that's the most important part of life. Life isn't about making a bunch of money. Do we need money? Yes, we do. We need money in securing what you can to secure a future where you can spend time enjoying nature, going out and traveling, and building relationships, real life relationships. I think is really the important part of life, and what allows you to do that. So if I continue building on Sentinel and other networks, as much time as I do spend on it, I always set aside time to watch a film with my dad because I lost my mom a year ago, and I was really close to her, and it was really hard last year. And I feel ever since I lost my mom, my dad is turning 82 this year, and so I want to enjoy life with him. Um, as much as I work, and sometimes I overwork myself, I need to take a break and enjoy the things that are around me that won't last. And I think that is the most important thing you can take out of life is understanding the impermanence of the people and things you do and recognizing that they will not be there forever. And so you need to um, value them while they're here.
Man, that is a very touching and I think to the heart piece of advice that it's to the heart. But when I said to the heart, the word hard started to sound, and it's also hard sometimes to stop working, right, for all of us, and to just enjoy what is around us. I totally 1 billion% can relate to that. On that note, FreQniK, thank you very much for coming to the show and sharing, not just the happy parts, but also the parts that make you, more touchy and more yourself. And all the difficult times as well, because that makes us who we are, right? So thank you for being yourself.
Life is a journey, and you take the good with the bad, and you just value everything you can. So I really appreciate you taking the time and inviting me to the space. I'm gonna have to check out. You mentioned some of the podcasts you did, so I'm gonna check those out because it strikes a chord with my interest. So
Please,
when I get some free time, I'll definitely check you guys out. But I really appreciate you inviting me to kick the shit and just talk whatever we can talk about, just life and validating and crypto and the future of what can become.
before you hang up, we're just gonna say bye to everybody who's listened to us, and guys, thank you for tuning in. Check you out next week. Please don't hang up just yet. This is just bye for the show, and thank you everyone for tuning in. This content was created by the Citizen Web3 Validator. You may support our work by delegating to any of our nodes.